Destructive and deadly flooding.
I've never seen it like this before.
The Hill Country flooding disaster caught many off guard.
Our precious, hilarious, kind, caring, silly, loving little girl who always wanted to help others died because there was no plan.
Could more have been done to warn people? In our quest for accountability, we press for answers.
When we know better, we do better. And so we need to do better for the people in this community, for the people that are suffering.
And seek solutions.
And welcome to our special town hall discussion on the Hill Country flooding disaster. I'm Jonathan Martinez.
And I'm Jay Avila. Tonight we're joined by a panel of experts and those whose lives were directly impacted by the deadly flooding. At least 116 people died when heavy rain brought flooding in the early morning hours of July 4th. In all, at least 135 people died during July flooding across Texas. Since then, Kerr County and Kerrville leadership have been criticized for their response. There has also been intense scrutiny for not warning the community or having a better notification system in place.
A lot to go over the next hour. We will be taking a closer look at this flooding disaster, what went wrong and what needs to be done to prevent yet another tragedy. We'll also discuss solutions. That includes better communications during an emergency, a flood warning system, an evacuation plan. We'll also examine the special session and what lawmakers are doing to financially support all of these efforts. Plus, we will talk about mental health needs and all of the available resources. And finally, we will recognize some of the good through the volunteer and rescue response as well.
But first, let's get started by introducing our panel. Ray Howard is an Ingram City Council member. Mike Richards is from Centerpoint. He is a rancher. And Lorena Guillen, owner of Howdy's and Blue Oak RV Park in Ingram.
We've got a lot of people in the house today. Next up, we have Brady Constantine, the Kendall County Emergency Management Coordinator at the far end there. John Trollinger, the former Kerr County IT Director in the back there. Terry Hall with Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom, or TURF. And finally, Dr. Ashley Miller, the Director of Behavioral Health, Hill Country Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Centers as well.
We invited members of the leadership from Kerrville and Kerr County, including the county judge, emergency management director, mayor, and city manager. They all declined or failed to respond to our request.
And we did reach out a couple of times as well to let it be known. Let's go ahead and start with our first topic, solutions. We heard firsthand today why this is so important.
Some of the families of Camp Mystic flood victims testified at a Texas House Committee hearing in the state capitol.
Obvious common sense safety measures were absent. Protocols that should have been in place were ignored. As a result, my daughter was stolen from us. Seal's life ended not because of an unavoidable act of nature, but because of preventable failures.
All right, certainly a moving conversation there and discussion, and that's what we want to continue right here, have a discussion. So we'll be asking questions, leaving it open to whoever would like to answer. I guess first things first, when you see that type of testimony there, what do we feel needs to be done? What needs to be addressed first? And I open it up to anybody who'd like to answer.
Early warning system. Yes. And that's what I'm advocating for. I can only deal with Ingram because I'm city councilman Ingram, so we're only talking 2.2 miles long, but I've done my research, looking in for companies that do that type of work, and the company I found is this company. It's called Wayland, and these sirens here. This is what I'm pushing for. We're going to put 3 of these in Ingram, a very tall one, a 10 horn, and 2 6 horns. That will send out a siren. Then it'll also notify you verbally what's going on through the siren. And the system also, you can download a free app on your phone. So when you hear the siren going off and say you can't really hear what's going on, it'll tell you on your phone exactly what's going on.
Lorena, we know that we saw a lot of destruction in your area as well. Talk to us about what you feel needs to be addressed.
Well, definitely I believe the city leaders, state leaders, and country leaders, they need to come together and obviously have a much better system with warnings like Mr. Howard mentioned. Make that mandatory for all the cities to have. You know, from our state capital, they need to make that for all of the small towns in the United States, not just us, because we're just one of many towns they flood. So get it together, talk to us, the local people, talk to the chambers, they know the local people, and get together and work together, because that's what's going to take to get through this, is a united front.
And Brady, Constantine, let me ask you, because in Kendall County, what did you feel helped you there that might be of use going forward?
I'll tell you that I can't speak for anybody else's actions except for my own. I'm not going to criticize anybody on any neighboring county. They're going to have to work internally to work through those issues. For me in Kendall County, I'll tell you that my philosophy is when we know better, we do better. We should do better, right? And all the firemen in our county and everybody knows that any class that I teach, I'm going to say that, meaning lessons learned. I've been in the fire service over 20 years, and every policy, I'm a law enforcement officer as well as a critical care paramedic. Every policy that we have today is based on lessons learned, after action review, learning from bloodshed and those that have been lost, and doing better for the citizens that we serve.
And to that point there, lessons learned, what would you say was the biggest lesson learned for all of the Hill Country that's go around in this sad tragedy?
Aside from early notification systems, as Mr. Howard is pushing for, the communication between counties, between jurisdictions. You know, I honestly, I didn't know all of that was happening upstream from us the first several hours that it was, and I'm right next door.
Well, and how about communication between our own county and city within Kerr County, the city of Kerrville, and the county, as well as the Sheriff's Department? We heard at the legislative hearing on July 31st that it was pretty chaotic. There wasn't even communication amongst the two entities at first. Many of them were asleep, and they had to be brought in. I think there was not a clear chain of command when we had Doug Thomas, was our emergency management coordinator, was sick. Well, who's supposed to be in his place when he's out sick in the middle of a disaster? I mean, you need to have a better chain of command in place. And I think that was another lesson learned, is that we had way too many of the top people that are supposed to be managing the disaster out. Like, where were they? And we needed that to manage the disaster properly and notify other counties and make sure that everyone downstream could be protected. So I think that, and then some new technology that has come into play since then. They now have statewide decision support gauges. It's a new type of flood gauge. They can also detect the velocity of the water, not just the actual level of the water. And that's something that TxDOT has put in on their bridges. We found that out at the hearing as well. And when they can detect a spike in the velocity, that gives them time, that gives them almost 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour, that they can get people out in time when they know that there's this velocity, that this is serious flooding coming through, we need to do something. But I think education too, because if we just have a warning system, most of the people, unfortunately, that died in this flood, they were from out of Kerr County. They weren't locals. So we need to know with signage, with maybe if the alert system goes off, there needs to be something that says get to higher ground in that, like a voice operated something that tells them what the action needs to be that they take, because just waking people up, my fear is living on Highway 39, you put all those people on there, buses with kids, all these people evacuating, that got washed out. I mean, there was no way you could get out safely on Highway 39. The message needed to be get to higher ground in this situation.
And exactly, when Camp Mystic started to evacuate, it started to deal with the flood. If I had known, I would have gotten all the people out at that point.
It really is a communications problem. The city of Kerrville has a different radio system from the Kerr County Sheriff's Office. But the surrounding counties, Kendall County and Gillespie County, are on the same system as the city of Kerrville. But the sheriff has opted to be on this completely different system, and there's a big communications gap.
All about communication. You know what, this conversation is just getting started, and we're going to hear a lot more from the panel, but we also want to hear from you at home. In fact, Jordan Elder is standing by. Jordan, how are things looking?
We've gotten a couple questions in so far. If there's anything specific that you would like us to ask our guests, you can send those either on Facebook, on the live stream, or on our YouTube live stream comments. Right now I'm seeing a couple questions in there about the special session and how flood relief and redistricting are going to be balanced. So if you want to take part in this conversation, you can submit questions on Facebook. Just search News 4 San Antonio. The town hall post is pinned at the top of the page, so you can leave a comment there. I'm also looking through those YouTube comments as well. So that's all there for you. We're going to check back in just a little bit.
All right, Jordan, sounds like a plan. Meantime, another question that we are asking you at home tonight. Do you think any Hill Country official should face criminal charges as a result from the flooding? Be sure to scan the QR code right there on your screen. So far, results fairly mixed, but we'd like to hear from you as well. Scan the QR code on your screen to also weigh in. Still to come tonight, could sirens along the river have helped people to escape the flood sooner?
Certainly depends on who you ask. The debate over early warning systems next as our town hall on the Hill Country flooding disaster continues.
And welcome back. Since the flooding, there's been a lot of questions about the timing of warning people ahead of the storm.
It was a major focus during a joint State House hearing last month in Kerrville, with a lot of the lawmakers questioning local leadership.
A lot of folks who have titles, but when the time came to act, they did not do so in a timely fashion.
Was the issue why that evacuation order wasn't issued?
It was too late. It was too late.
Okay.
This was so massive and arrived so quickly.
By Texas law, the only two people who could have called an emergency evacuation were the county judge, Rob Kelly, and the mayor of Kerrville, Joe Herring. The mayor was in town but had missed a statewide call the day before warning of possible flooding by the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
And one of the other things that we brought up earlier, William W. Thomas, the county emergency manager, well, he was sick. We're told he came in after his wife actually woke him up.
You didn't wake up till 4:20. The judge is in Lake Travis, and the emergency manager is sick. There were little girls with water around their feet at 2 a.m. at Mystic, and were told stay in your cabin. And those little girls did what they were instructed.
And just to emphasize again, we did invite the Kerr County judge, the sheriff, emergency management coordinator, that is, county commissioners, as well as a Kerrville mayor and city manager. They all declined or they ignored our request. All that said, let's go ahead and bring our panel in to discuss it again. Do you believe that they did everything that they needed to warn the community? And I open this up to anyone who'd like to answer.
No.
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 Talk to us and why you feel
I was up at 3 a.m. I was listening to the radio. I'd seen the weather alerts. I'd seen the day before. I knew it was coming. These first responders from the Mountain Home Fire Department had gotten up and self-activated. They knew it was coming. There was no one at the county government level awake or alert to the weather, including the dispatchers. I found, in hindsight, the dispatchers were not aware of the weather.
No, they were not. I talked to the sheriff's dispatcher at 2:08 in the morning of July 4. And I asked her because I was very concerned with the weather because I seen the cloud, it wasn't moving. What do I do? Do I need to evacuate? I'm in the middle of 3 RV parks. If at 2:08 that sheriff's dispatcher had told me, yes, evacuate because Camp Mystic is already on the water, I could have gotten all 3 RV parks out because we communicate with each other. We always talk to each other to help each other out. And we did that last July when we had a flood. And we worked together. We worked together with the fire department. We worked together internally, and we got everybody out, and nothing happened. That's our normal.
Judge Kelly is my neighbor, and he was out of county when this hit. When he got back in county, he basically signed the disaster declaration and then came home, hired a crew to start cleaning up the debris on his own property, was actually burning. So we have no idea if there were actually remains of any of these people on his property. And as we found out at the legislative hearing, he was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, we have Kendall County next door to us that had people on watch all night long. And where were our people? Where were the Kerr County people watching this flood all night long, knowing that something big could be happening with the Weather Service alerts that we did get ahead of time, that this could turn into something big? They should have been monitoring this through the night, and nobody was.
Some important points made there. And of course, today, Camp Mystic families testified at a state hearing where several parents pointed to the lack of planning. And we're going to take a listen to a portion of that.
Our precious, hilarious, kind, caring, silly, loving little girl who always wanted to help others died because there was no plan, because there was no backup system or sirens, because the sweet 18 and 19-year-old counselors did not have the training they needed.
You know, and as we heard that, it was very emotional. We heard story after story. I did want to bring in Mike. You, sadly, unfortunately, you found bodies there on your property. What's it like to live through all of this and then to hear the testimony from all these family members right there to say, hey, we need something to change. We need warning systems. We need better communication, top to bottom. Something needs to change. It shouldn't have taken this to make change, but thoughts on seeing something like that?
Well, no, I have a ranch in Bandera, so I was high and dry. I just saw it raining that night. And whenever I received a phone call the next morning, so I don't really have any knowledge as to how it all went down.
Sure.
But I received a call from my daughter saying that there was a body next to her house and could I come over. So I went over there and we waited for the sheriff's department to get there. And from that point on, I saw very little that was done right. I really did. By the state, by the city, by the county, FEMA's a joke. But I saw very little that was actually done right. And if it wouldn't have been for my friends and family, people would still be out there. I mean, I don't know how to say it. I mean, the state was non-existent, FEMA was non-existent. You know, the whole thing could have been done properly, like this lady said here. People pushing bulldozers and debris up. Man, you know, these neighbors of mine, they didn't know how to check out, look for bodies. Right. The state should have come down there and said, hey, this is the way we want to do it. We want everybody to walk, then we'll bring the dogs and we'll bring this equipment. Get everybody on the same page, but it never happened.
And it's key, again, communication, all about communication.
Exactly.
So while leadership said that they had no warning, we were forecasting a major flooding event the day before.
And Chris Suchan is here to talk a little bit about what you knew that night. What did we know that perhaps was missed or just not taken seriously enough?
Well, so I think there was a certain amount of, we had the flood watch that was active, and we knew 5 to at least 7 inches in spots. On the air from 5, 6, 10 o'clock, I was showing model data that suggested a foot of rain is possible in what I call a little rain bomb. You don't know exactly where it could occur. You're not 100% sure it will occur, but the fact that a model was pumping out a foot of rain from Uvalde to Bandera, maybe parts of Kerr County, that was the messaging the night before, and trying to pin down that possibility. And then it materialized northern Bandera into Kerr County.
Do you think it's possible that when people get a forecast or warnings like that, and sometimes it doesn't pan out to be that big of a deal, that we get complacent?
Well, it absolutely adds to the complexity of everything. We've been in a drought. We were hoping for rain. We haven't had that big flooding event in a number of years, something of this magnitude. You have to go back decades, or 1932, for something that rivals it with that crest. Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to see that coming here because you just haven't experienced it, or it's been so long.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, Chris, as always, good insight there. Coming up next, our panel answers your questions. It's in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our town hall on the Hill Country flooding disaster.
We asked you to submit your questions on the News 4SA Facebook page.
And standing by is Jordan Elder with some of those questions right now. Jordan, what are folks asking?
Well, we've got a lot of good questions coming in, but I wanted to bring this one in from Cheryl, and she's got a question about Highway 39. If you haven't been through this area of the Hill Country, it is kind of the one way in and the one way out. So her question is, if something serious were to have happened to Highway 39, things could have gone really differently here. So do you believe there should be more roads or infrastructure looked at as we look at flood recovery?
Well, Highway 39 is a tough one because there isn't really room to expand. Having alternate routes, that's something that we need to be looking at, but there's a lot of private property through there, right? So it's going to involve eminent domain, and there's lots of property rights concerns there, but at the end of the day, I think those low water crossings, and something that Senator Campbell brought up during the legislative hearing on the July 31st, is that maybe we need to raise some of those bridges up. And in fact, the bridges that were raised actually had less damage than the ones that were in those low water crossings. So I think we actually need to be addressing some of those low water crossings, at least at a minimum, and then looking at alternate ways in or out. I don't know, that's a tough one, but that's why knowing what to do with the warning is so important, because if you had just piled everybody onto that way in and that was covered in water by several feet of water and people would have been washed off, it could have been even worse than what we had this time around. So I think we need a combination of things, really.
Yeah, definitely not a simple solution, not anything short term, but something to look at. Thank you guys for your insight on that. If you want to keep asking more questions, we are up on Facebook Live. We're also on YouTube, so we're monitoring those comments. We also have a post pinned to our Facebook page. So you ask the questions. We'll be back for the panel with more of them in a little bit.
All right, sounds like a plan. Jordan, thank you for that. Recovering from the flooding disaster, the latest from the state capitol, and what our panelists think of the funding priorities so far. That's straight ahead. And here's another look right now at our live viewer poll. Do you think any Hill Country official should face criminal charges as a result of the flooding? Right there, let's look at the results. 62% of you say no, but we'd like to hear from you as well. Scan the QR code right there on your screen. And we do welcome you back to our town hall covering the Hill Country flooding disaster.
We have much more to cover, but we're moving the discussion online. Head over to news4sa.com right now, and one of the things we'll talk about just today, there was heart-wrenching testimony from families of Camp Mystic victims, the latest on flood relief legislation. We'll also discuss mental health needs, and we'll recognize the rescue and volunteer efforts.
And be sure to go to our News4SA Facebook page along with all of our social media platforms. We've got you covered. We've got a large panel. The discussion just getting started. We'll see you in just a moment. And welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us for our Hill Country flooding disaster panel discussion.
In our first half hour, we discussed solutions, communication and warning systems. And next we'll talk about what lawmakers are doing financially to support flood impacted communities. And we'll address the mental health needs while recognizing the good that came out of all this through the volunteer and rescue response that we witnessed.
All right, so let's go ahead and introduce our panel once again. We've got Ray Howard, an Ingram City Council member, Mike Richards, a rancher from Cedar Point, and Lorena Guillen, the owner of Howdy's in Blue Oak RV Park.
Also with us, Brady Constantine, Kendall County Emergency Management, John Trollinger, former Kerr County IT Director, Terry Hall, Texans Uniting for Reforms and Freedom, and Dr. Ashley Miller, Director of Behavioral Health, Hill Country Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Centers. And of course, we also invited officials in Kerr County and Kerrville. They either declined or failed to respond to our request.
All right, so the first special session ended last Friday without any bills advancing on both sides of the aisle.
It's an insult that they're playing games and using us as pawns when we are real people who have a lot of trauma, and we deserve better.
A second special session began last Friday with several flood-related priorities, including camp safety, flood warning systems, flood emergency communications, relief funding for Hill Country floods, and natural disaster preparation and recovery.
Yeah, a coalition of families is calling for an investigation into the Camp Mystic tragedy and for the special session to address camp safety.
Some of the parents testified before a Senate committee in Austin today.
We did not send Lenny to a war zone. We sent her to camp.
I naively assumed she was safer at camp than anywhere else. When I think about the trauma and fear that our girls endured, it makes me physically ill.
When you send your kid to camp, you expect to pick them up. You don't expect them to leave camp in a Blackhawk. And you don't expect them to be swept away in the middle of the night by rushing floodwaters.
Our daughters paid the ultimate price for their obedience to a plan that was destined to fail.
This legislation cannot bring back our daughters. but it is the beginning of change that must occur so this tragedy never happens again.
Okay, so the coalition has several recommendations for lawmakers. They include prevention, move structures away from floodplains and other hazardous areas, detection, require camps to maintain an emergency detection plan with 24/7 monitoring of alerts and adequate notification systems for emergency type of situations. Also training, establish standards for evacuation plans and require emergency drills for campers along with staff. Response, require emergency management to formally trigger a campsite response. So let's go ahead and bring back in our panel tonight. One of the things that we haven't spoken about just yet is going to be the mental health aspect of this, and we do want to bring in Dr. Ashley Miller. You saw the parents there giving that emotional testimony. They talked about it. In one instance, it was a family who sadly lost one child. Their other child survived, and they're having to explain to them what happened. But talk to us from that mental health aspect, what a tragedy like this means for families in our entire community.
It's horrific, and I think we have to just meet people where they're at. There's a lot of different emotions and reactions that can come out of this, and the most important piece is to know that you have mental health professionals ready and willing and able to talk to you and be there and to support the community and bringing everybody together. So that's from families that are having a significant loss, to your neighbors, to your coworkers, just knowing that you have someone to talk to. We're willing to meet you where you're at, and there is no way to put words to some of these things, and that's okay too. But we just don't want people to be suffering in silence. Talk to somebody, even if it's not walking into a mental health clinic. Talk to somebody, reach out to somebody, and just know that we're here and we're here for the long term.
Ashley, thank you so much for that. We want to open it up to everyone else. You get your reaction to this moving testimony by the family members and whether you think what's been presented by the legislature for action is going to act on the right things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, they've got to change the old system. The old system was farmer or rancher George upriver called rancher downstream, and that's the way they, told that the floods were coming. That has to change. That absolutely has to change. If there's no communication, because if you go up above Hunt, cell phones don't work. So that gets an issue. But I was just up there yesterday, and I couldn't believe where my cell phone was actually working. I mean, it was working all the way out towards the headwaters. There's a new tower out there.
There is a new tower.
So maybe some of that is going to be a little bit more, has been addressed in that situation.
And Senate Bill 2 does tackle a lot of that. That's kind of the big bill, the umbrella bill that's dealing with camp safety, requiring emergency plans, making sure there's proper training of like all the counselors that come in, annual training as well for all their staff. It deals with the interoperability. There's actually this whole separate bill for the communications, but some of that is also in SB 2. And so I think that there's a very serious effort by the legislature to address a lot of these same issues. They heard it on July 31st. They're hearing it from parents today. I do think that these issues are going to be ultimately addressed. Now, there's probably going to be some needs for tweaking things. I mean, there might be things. I think they're also trying to put together a council, and that was what we heard from, if you remember that panel on July 31st that talked about from like all the different universities and all of the professors and people doing research on this. They asked for a council to be convened where they can all collaborate and work together, because a lot of times we're in silos and we don't really know, and talking with one another with the technology that's available to actually help get better meteorological and data that we need to get warnings sooner. And I think that that's also in one of these bills. So I think that there is a big effort being made, but the funding bill hasn't passed yet. And that's what one of your citizens there that you were interviewing is very, very frustrated about, because in the middle of all the politics going on with redistricting, what's falling by the wayside? Well, getting the money and flood relief efforts to the people that need it.
Yeah, that is been the most absolutely painful thing to go through, because I'm going through on all sides. I have 4 businesses. There were 3 of them direct impact, 1 indirect, plus our home, plus our animals. We have we had and now it's going through all of the paperwork is being awful, because we lost paperwork too on the flood. So, and I have to say that the people at FEMA and the people at the SBA have been absolutely amazing, very respectful, very understanding, and they also understand that their policy might not be appropriate, but the people working the booth, the people working there are being very, very polite, very nice, very attending, but they can only do so much.
So people are still desperately waiting for help after having so much destroyed. And I wanted to point out at this point, because we did hear the emotional comments from the family members, that we did reach out to Camp Mystic, obviously several times since this disaster. And they did not want to comment, but they did say that while they won't specify any specific legislation, they do support legislative efforts, even the ones that are going to focus in on camps. And so we did reach out to them, and they opted not to be a part of our proceedings this evening.
Well, everybody's getting quiet because the attorneys, I mean, with the lawsuit they just starting, everybody's being told not to talk.
Yeah. I can tell you what I would like to see. Aside from the legislation and what does pass on mandates for training, implementation of plans and such, I would hope to see that TDEM, Texas Division of Emergency Management, brings people together from at the local jurisdictional level as well with their county liaisons and such to see how that is going to be implemented. Myself, I haven't been in the emergency management office as many years as my predecessor, who spent 40 years in this role. To see him sitting at the table to be part of writing that book on what the changes are that need to be made, those are people that I can lean on for implementation.
That was one of the things that we heard on the panel on the 31st from some of those professors and those doing the research, is that they need a training center. A training center where all of our first responders can go and get this specialized training, so that when they are doing cooperative efforts amongst counties, they all know what to do when they hit the ground. They know exactly who's supposed to be in charge. They know what radio channel to be on, and all of it just works as a seamless, smooth operation. Because most of these counties, especially these small counties that we haven't even mentioned here tonight, there's lots of little small counties that got impacted as well. They don't have the resources. They have volunteer emergency management coordinators like Real County does. So, they don't have the resources to go through that kind of training. Right. And when you're a volunteer, and that was the one thing that was in SB2 that might be concerning for some of those smaller counties with volunteers instead of employees, is how do they get the continuing education for the required certification now that the state's going to require to be an emergency management coordinator. So it's going to impact some of these smaller counties. They may have to do exceptions for some of those small counties with volunteers, but the state, I think, is doing what they can to come together and get those resources and pull everybody together and bring that expertise in to make sure that our guys are trained and know what they're doing. And I think we also need a lot more swift water rescue trained first responders in Texas.
Yeah. Well, Brady, real quick, just to follow up on that, Texas does have this type of training available, correct? You've been to this training.
I've been to multiple trainings throughout the state. What I am referring to, though, is that being at the table, the ones that have been in this seat for so many years and have real world knowledge, and I don't want to downgrade myself, but people my age that haven't been in it as many years shouldn't be writing the final line on it without it going through those that have experience in it and have spent 20 years, see the water come up, see it go down, the effects, the lessons learned from that on how we do better should be part of the decision making on how it's all implemented, in my opinion. There's one thing of seeing it black and white, and I'm going to tell you firsthand, it's completely different when your boot's on the ground. I learned so much over the last couple of months as opposed to the last year of being in the seat. But without 20 years in the fire service myself, there's no way I would have been able to made it through all of this on my own. And it took a team to get through what happened on July 4th and the weeks. I mean, all the way up, I was still doing I was in a FEMA meeting yesterday, still dealing with this. We're learning so much from it, but I think TDEM is going to. The Texas Division of Emergency Management are very strong individuals. I love Nimkid and his family to death, and my county liaison officer, I have a great relationship with him. Chief Brinkater is one of the chiefs that I see on a daily basis that I have a good relationship with, but having that relationship is what helped get us through and where we are today.
Working together.
Yeah,
Tell you what-
absolutely.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I agree with. The first people I saw when I came down the stairs of my house was the water rescue team from Mountain Home, and the first person I saw, because I know him, is a Roadblock and
The Block Brothers.
The Block Brothers, man. My husband's family knows them since they were little. So
I think they're world famous now.
They are now, at least.
especially
Yeah, they
with
are.
that name, right? So I saw them in action, not in training, which is, oh my God, completely crazy. And I saw what they did and how they did it, and they couldn't rescue everybody, and they did an amazing job by rescuing so many people. But I know that their equipment got used, got destroyed. So right now they're calling for donations to replace their equipment. So why somebody so important like they are have to ask for a donation to replace their equipment?
There's a big gap. Communications, there's a whole new radio system in Kerr County, and the firefighters, the volunteer fire department, firefighters do not have handheld radios, not the ones I've spoken to.
Hopefully
They're
something else
very
to be addressed.
expensive, but there's also a lot of money coming into Kerr County right now. And it needs to be spent on these first responders.
Yes.
Absolutely.
To give them good equipment.
The equipment that they need.
Yes.
You know, I'd like to say something about
Yeah,
that.
me too.
It's I know. I used to be a first responder. I was a deputy with the sheriff's department, and but in this particular case, man, I didn't see any first responders. I sat out there the very first day, and I tried to get help from the state, and they said, "Oh, I'm sitting right up here, got up on the hill here in Kerrville. I got all this kind of equipment and everything. Do you want me to come help you?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." Called me back 5 minutes from then, and says, "Oh, well, the state's not going to let me come down there and help you."
Yeah.
Well, I was on my own, you know. So I started calling my friends and my neighbors, and my cousins, and that's how I got help to go look for them. And then when we'd find a body, and we found 10 of them. When we'd find a body, we'd call the sheriff's department. They'd come out, photograph it, and take the body. But that's the only time I ever saw first responders. It was the volunteers that were giving of themselves. They were the ones out there with the snakes and the bacteria and everything else. And the whole time the volunteers were out there, FEMA, the state, whoever, I don't know. They had people in the hotels for 3 weeks sitting there. They're getting paid 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, while we got volunteers out there doing the actual work, not getting paid a penny. There's something wrong with that picture, you know. And all the equipment, there was millions and millions of dollars of equipment sitting up there in parking lots all through Kerrville. And why are they sitting in a parking lot? We needed help, you know.
I'll tell you
So,
what.
I mean, so everybody's got their own opinion. We were in different parts of the river, but my part of the river, the Kerrville and the county, my gosh, whenever somebody would call, I had some friends call from Houston, and they turned them away. They said, "No, we're full." Well, why don't you? Okay, if you're full, you don't need any more help. Well, then what about Centerpoint? What about Hunt? What about Ingram? Refer them to them, you know.
Yeah.
That was terrible, you know, the way they did that in the state. Man, that is so unimpressive. I mean,
Can I build on that?
And
Do we have time?
Yeah, bring it.
No, go ahead,
yeah,
sir,
yeah.
Mr. Howard. Go ahead.
and to say that, to answer that, Ingram, we never got, as the city hall, never got a single call from anybody, from the county, from Kerrville, nothing. We never got a phone call over a week. And then when we did, it was like, "Are you guys okay?" It's like,
but in a perfect world where your first responders, yeah, give them all the credit in the world, But man, there was no first responders
Well,
show
there were
up.
not
We don't have that.
enough
We don't
first
have.
responders.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
There's not enough of
Not
them.
No,
enough.
So you can't just give everything on a few first responders and expect them to do miracles with it. You know, you have to, in the state and FEMA, treated my volunteers like second-class citizens. And FEMA just needs to be abolished, period. I know they may be nice, they may be, but no, that's a waste of taxpaying dollars.
I can tell you that I can't defend anybody else's actions. I wasn't on that side. Kendall County and Kerr County, night and day difference as far as the devastation. There's really no comparing the two, right? I was downstream. Kendall County was downstream. No matter how we look at it, we still had some advanced warning as word started coming out as it came into the early morning hours. That's reality as far as Kendall County. So I did have preparatory time versus anybody in Kerr County. But I can tell you, sitting in the Emergency Operations Center, I set it up 20 miles away. And I did that on purpose. I did that in the city of Bernie because that is the way our emergency operations plan is written, in joint with the city of Bernie. My job in emergency management, the way that I see it, is resources. I am not generally I spent 20 years on the suppression side. I was the rescuer. My job has changed by choice, right? And my job is now to get resources to those boots on the ground, which is your command post. That is ICS. That is the National Incident Management System. Right. That is TDIM, and then FEMA is the next one up above them. I can tell you that my phone rang nonstop for 48 hours, 72 hours straight. My county phone, my personal phone, my Facebook was getting blown up of people from all over the country saying, hey, we have a team. Hey, we have an 18-wheeler. We're on our way. We just drove from 5 different states away. We're coming. We were seeing what was happening in Kerr County with a whole bunch of volunteers not knowing where to go, filling the streets. I'll tell you, I personally, and like I said, I have a lot of lessons learned. I did not do everything right in this flood. No matter what it looks like to the public and to the world, there's a lot that I have to change and that we need to build on for Kendall County to do better next time. I turned a lot of people away, but what we did start doing was making a list of resources, what you have to offer, a contact phone number, how long it would take you to get here when we get to that point. We didn't have a full grasp of what we had, but what I do know is that the water was no longer coming up, therefore it was going down. I didn't have any reported missing persons, and so in my eyes, who am I to give permission on a county level to Jim Bob to be on Joe's property and to take an excavator and tear up his property for what may be there or may not be there, because I don't have reported missing persons from Kendall County. So that was my reasoning for turning copious amounts of companies and people away. I'm still getting phone calls. I'm still getting emails. People wanting to come freelance through the county.
And I mean, that's a different perspective that perhaps we hadn't heard just yet. It's multifaceted. There's a lot of different parts to all of this. In the end, it's certainly a tragedy.
But at the end of the day, you have to have someone at the top for your county that is running point. And we did not have that in Kerr County. And our little group locally is called Liberty in Action, and we've called for the county judge's resignation. His mismanagement, if you will, or just lack of presence in properly managing all of these moving parts is really more of a dereliction of duty, and he needs to resign immediately.
I agree.
I'll tell you
These
what.
leaders, they failed us. They failed us on July the 3rd. Kendall County was activated. They had their EOC, they were paging people, they were in action. In Kerr County, they're on vacation and they're asleep.
Nothing.
And all of the people that came down there and helped me were saying, they were from all over the state. They were saying, hey, where's the command center? You know, we don't have one command center, we got 60, you know. And you can't operate like that. You got people coming in from other parts of the country that don't know the river, you know.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you on that, because the only time I saw the first responders were when they were rescuing people. This is July 4th, when there were still people, you know, alive being rescued. But I agree 100% with you. Now, besides what's happening on the river, on my property, I had no one helping me, just like he said. It was my friends and my community. They came and cleared everything, because I have a ramp that access the river, and that is because of my friends and my community clearing that road. That was allowed the first responders later on to access the ramp and get into the river, and that's how it became command center for a few days for all the rescue efforts, and that's how I got to see everything.
Firsthand, yeah.
Yes, I mean, they started at 6 a.m. and they didn't end it until sundown.
Yeah.
And but helping me personally, it was only volunteers.
Well, that's one thing that's in the SB2 bill that concerns us a bit, is that there's going to be this state volunteer management system and require background checks of all of the volunteers in their system. And, you know, just coming from the perspective of what we all just went through, I don't want to have a background check and wait 3 days or a week in the middle of a crisis when there's people out there that need to be rescued, when there's our neighbors that need help. I don't want to wait for that to go get a shovel and help muck out my neighbor's house. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. So I think that we can also go a little bit overboard sometimes with that. And what they really heard in the July 31st hearing, at least, from so many of these friends, neighbors, our community, was people getting turned away, people who want to help and not being able to help. And yet at the same time, seeing that things weren't being done and things, you know, workers or rescuers or whatever weren't able to be there. But we had 20,000 volunteers coming into town that could easily be deployed for certain tasks and should have been allowed to do so.
So communication.
And there was no definition on the volunteers. I mean, I was told by somebody, send them to the fire department, the Ingram Fire Department.
Right.
Then I was told by somebody else, no, you had to send them over here. Then you had, I had no idea what to do. So at one point, I just started telling the volunteers what to do, and I started organizing the people who were coming to me.
There's been several folks doing that.
Oh
Yep.
my God, that was
Just organizing
crazy.
volunteers.
Tell you
Yes.
what, it's been a great conversation so far. We've been asking you all questions, but we do want to get to a couple of more viewer questions, and I believe Jordan Elder's been standing by. She's been combing through a couple of them. Jordan, what do we got?
We have got a lot of good comments, specifically on our YouTube live stream. Jay Jones has been asking a lot of questions. One of the ones I wanted to bring to you all is about donations. We've been talking about how immediately people wanted to come volunteer, they wanted to help. Where does all of that stand? For those of you who qualify for some of those bigger donations from the funds that people have been going to send their money to, have you seen any of those donations yet?
I can tell you, I put it out there for donations for the early warning system for Ingram, because we're looking at about $178,000 to put the siren systems up. And my first donation was a lady from Houston yesterday, and she just turned 80 years old. She told her family, don't send me any presents, send me cash, because I want to send it to a good cause. Her family grew up between Hunt and Ingram, and so she donated $350 to the cause for the sirens. And if you want to do any donations for that, all the money will be used explicitly, 100%, to the warning system, and you can send it to Ingram City Hall.
There you go.
Now, I have something to say about the donations and everything. And everything that was donated to the city or the state, you know, is still there, and you have to go through so many paperwork to file in order to receive anything. And then you have to, for personal, for your house, and then you have to go buy your business, and then it's just so complicated that it's very, and you're exhausted because you're tired. You don't have a home, or your home is semi-destroyed, or you're helping a friend, or all your documents got swept down the river, you know? So for me on the donations, I think I would like to see a combination of the appraisal district, the state controller, and the IRS working together to start handing out money to us, the business owners or the property owners, immediately. Because the only thing I've seen from the government so far personally is $640 for my home. And the chambers, the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce help out big time, and the West Kerr County Chamber of Commerce were absolutely fantastic. I didn't have to call to apply. They call me, Kathy from West Kerr County, call me and say, Lorena, I know you're going through, I've been at your restaurant, these are the questions I need so I can give you a check.
Wow.
The next day, she brought me a check to my business. That was my very, very first check that I ever received.
See, I don't know where all the donations are going. I know where they're not, but I mean, the only ones that have helped me any is churches.
Yeah, the churches are the. Yeah.
I mean, that's it, man.
Well, Community Foundation, where they've been trying to funnel most of that money going through them, is not set up to give directly to flood victims. So they're giving them to things like
But
churches,
that
or giving
money
them to
is
entities
sent.
who are supposed to disperse it to people. But I don't know how well that's happening. But
It's not.
It's not.
That money is sent out of goodness of people's hearts.
exactly, it's supposed
And
to
it
go to
needs to
victims.
be accounted for.
Yeah.
Every penny of it, you know. And if it's going to some kind of slush fund or whatever,
Yes.
it needs to be found out and called out.
Well, I objected to two of the early ones, that was Arcadia Theater and Pets Alive. And I understand that they were sheltering people or animals at first, but those are private businesses that were doing that as a service to the community. I mean, so why are we paying them to do something that they donated and volunteered to do in the middle of a crisis versus the flood victims who have lost everything and need those things replaced? And so much of it's not being covered by FEMA or their own personal insurance. I know we lost an acre of fencing. Of course, none of that's being covered by any of it. So
Yeah, I lost a
there's
cabin,
a lot of things that aren't covered.
2-bedroom house. And
A big part of it, this flood warning system, this Wayland system, it's ready to be ordered today.
Yeah, all I need is a PO.
We just need to send them a purchase order. But not only that, for years and decades, this system will need to be maintained.
Right.
And we need to fund that.
Yeah.
Because that'll fall, again, to the wayside. There'll be some minimal system, people will forget, and then, again, there'll be no one to push the button.
Absolutely. And one other thing about donations, because this is actually, I think it's important. I see Hunt, which I love, and we all love Hunt, but we all know there is a lot of money up there, and they're being helped. We all know Kerrville, which is the main city of the area, well known. What about Ingram?
Right.
what about Centerpoint?
And Centerpoint
Yeah,
and
Ingram and-
Comfort.
Well, and there's a whole organic group that's cropping up, Save Our Lake, basically Lake Ingram, and calls to drain the lake, because we already know that there's been cars, there's gnarled up fence, there's metal roofs, it could be
there's an RV in
anything,
there.
all collected there at the Ingram Dam. And we're really terrified to have kids who, that's where they hang out in the summer, is to jump in, dive into and hang out by the dam. They use it as a slide. There's paddle boats, all kinds of things happen there, recreation, but it's not going to be safe. And you can see the oil slicks all over that part of the river. And we know there's cars down there. We know that there's propane tanks down there. And there's no way to get that stuff out if they don't drain that lake. So there's a big effort for that right now.
And that's our drinking water, too.
It is our drinking water.
That's our
And
drinking
wells
water.
are contaminated. We have a neighbor that can't get the E. coli out of their well, and are having a hard time trying to get their drinking water back.
I want it cleaned. When I was a kid, I slid down the Ingram Dam, and I don't care about any endangered species. The thing needs to be cleaned out.
We're definitely getting the message that the job is not done. There are all these issues that people are still struggling with.
But here's one of my pet peeves. When she's talking about money, let's talk about money. Why are we bringing FEMA or whoever it is? Why are we bringing people from all over the country to sit down here in hotels and not paying anybody? And that money could be spent for this community, man. You know, and why are we taking the trees that we chip up and taking them to San Antonio and taking them to Austin? Why can't we put them there in Kerrville? They said, well, the last lie I was told was they were contaminated. I said, well, I don't see any hazmat suits dealing with it, you know.
And I think that's going to be part of it. I think by the end of it, and this conversation can go on all night at this point. It's been a great conversation. I think that's going to be a big part of it. Accountability at the end of the day, communication, solutions, and the whole nine. With that, I do want to go ahead and ask for a final thought from each one of you all and give you all each an opportunity to speak. Perhaps something we missed, and we'll just go down the line. Final thoughts for this conversation so far.
Well, education.
Yeah.
We need the public needs to be educated, and they need to buy in. They need to have the will, or at least the incentive, to load the app up on their phone for Code Red, to buy into the system, to be a part of it, so that they're on the front line. They're alerted immediately. They're part of that system. And we need to educate the public. Sheriff Hirholzer did this. It's not been a decade, but it's been a long time ago. And those 18,000 people that signed up back then, I remember I helped with the computer setup. Those people, they came on board, they logged in. If they couldn't log in, the sheriff's deputies were sitting at a computer. They set them up and signed them up, got their information in the system. And all that education, I think it just, it needs to be kept up on an annual basis, not just one shot and then forget about it. Education.
Education. All right, Terry, final thoughts?
Well, one of the big beefs of a lot of locals, both in the city of Kerrville and the county, is this disaster loophole that allows them to raise the property tax up to 8%. The city of Kerrville last night voted to do that. So they're literally jacking up taxes on survivors to pay for this that could basically bankrupt this county to start with. The state has already agreed to pay for the debris removal. The President of the United States came to our county and promised we would have everything we needed to recover from this disaster. And yet what does our local government do? They raise our taxes and exploit a disaster when people are hurting. We have businesses that can't open yet. They don't have the relief funds yet. It's going to take a while to get these things rebuilt. They're the paychecks. They're the ones that actually are helping people with their jobs and keep their jobs, and yet they're going to raise our taxes. And our county judge, not all the way to 8%, but is still proposing a budget that will raise property taxes in a time of crisis when so many people have damaged or wiped out their homes, or basically their property values are toast, because obviously our area is in crisis and nobody really wants to move here or buy here right now. So it's really, really unfair what's going on. And so we're encouraging people to speak up and speak against it and say, no, don't you dare adopt a budget that's going to raise our taxes at a time like this.
And Dr. Ashley Miller, final thoughts?
Yes, I just want to speak to a resource that people can come to if they need to. It's called the Emotional Support Center. We opened this up about a week after July 4th. And you don't need to have an appointment. You can just walk in and you'll have a mental health professional there to speak with you and meet you where you're at. And we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 3. So please come and see us if you need someone to speak with. We've got mental health professionals, licensed clinicians, and we also have care navigators that are there just to help people get through paperwork, or where do I go for this, or this is confusing for me. And if there's a transportation need, we've been trying to help with that, because there's people that don't have a car, don't have a way to get around. And so please come and see us. Share that information. We're here for you. We're here for the long term, for the healing and the recovery.
And I think you said it best when you said don't suffer in silence. Resources are out there.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Lorena, final thoughts?
Well, the local businesses are hurting. They're small local businesses. I know a lot of us, and we are hurting all the way along the river. I mean, and even though I'm just one, but we are the ones that hire the employees. We're the ones that our headquarters are in Kerrville, in Center Point, in Hunt. It's not in New York or China or somewhere else. We're here. We spend our money here. Our children go to school here. So what are we doing? Why are we messing with all of this? Where it's so easy for the government to help the small businesses, because right now the only way I can stay open is if I get an SBA loan between 4 to 8%. Okay, that is the second mortgage in my world. Plus property taxes going up, plus tourism going down.
That's right.
How I'm going to stay open for the next year when I lost my only source of income? How am I going to pay my mortgage? All of that for the small businesses that we are the ones that create the jobs locally. Why? We are 100% completely forgotten. You know, that is obviously what I'm advocating for, is for the local small business owners in the area that we're hurting really bad. And then the second part is the rebuild. I've been getting a lot of questions because, as you know, my Blue Oak RV Park is 100% total loss. So I've been getting a lot of questions about how we're going to rebuild, how the codes to rebuild along the river, to be safe, to be better, to be, avoid any human loss. How are we going to do it? Because as a business owner, I need to be able to generate an income in order to keep my business going.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, the need is still there.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I want to give Mike Richards a chance to give his final thoughts.
Well, there's different aspects. I think everybody is got a little expertise in after this thing, and it's before the next flood shows up. It's during the flood. What are they doing? And afterwards, And I think one of the things that has affected me the most is I'll give you two examples. One of them was I called for some help and they didn't do it. The state wouldn't send nobody down there because I wasn't on the list, whatever kind of list that was. And I couldn't get to any of the politicians to find out. But there needs to be, and it was all because of this Guadalupe River Authority and their idiotic laws that they got that's saying their excuse for me not sending me help was I wasn't supposed to build a fire within a half a mile. Well, who's building a fire? I wasn't going to build no fire, but that's, and then like Shriner Institute, I took my granddaughter down there to help me the Monday after, and Shriner kicked her out of nursing school because she missed that Monday and didn't call them. Just, man, there needs to be things in regards to the law, when provisions made, when there's people out there dying or dead, them laws go away. I mean, you gotta go out there immediately and forget all the stupid
Red
policies
tape.
and regulations, and we gotta find these people. That's my pet peeve.
All right. Tell you what, Ray, last point to be made.
Okay. Well, July 4th was a wake-up call for everybody. And for me, I live right on the river, and it was just high enough that the water didn't get into our house or even onto our property. And the things I saw that morning still haunt me.
Yes.
Because at one point in time, I was a volunteer fireman, and my favorite thing to do was high water rescue. I lived on the West Coast, and we had plenty of high water rescue places to train on. And I was like a fish in water, man. I just loved that. I watched a family go by in an RV screaming for help. Nothing I could do for them. And then later on, I saw like a 10 to 12, 13-year-old kid going by screaming for help. And again, it's like, I'm not 29 years old anymore. I'm dealing with stage 4 cancer. I don't have the physical ability to do that anymore. And God put it on my heart to do what I can. And what I am adamant about is getting an early warning system built, no matter what it takes. I'd love to see it done before this cancer takes me. I'm not claiming that I'm going to die from cancer, but I'm dealing with some pretty serious stuff. I want to see this. I want to see this done soon and correct. That's why I've done my research. I've found the best company that can do this. They've proven, and yes, education to the people. Yes, I agree 100% for RV parks and anybody that's down on the. Let's make legislation that mandates that you have tell these people they have to download this app on their phone.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes,
It's easy stuff
it
that we
is.
can do. We can
Absolutely.
educate the people as to how to use the system, and that's my goal.
That's the goal. All right, and tell you what, this conversation today was absolutely great. We know y'all could have been anywhere else today, but y'all chose to be here to help inform the public and give us some insight. It's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Brady, who was also on the panel, had to skip out a little bit early because he's got a little one on the way, so happy birthday to that one as well. Jordan, thank you for all of your insight on that side when it comes by way of social media. This was a great conversation, and as I always say, once we get to conversing, the way it went today, it was smooth because, again, we got a lot of different perspectives that perhaps people didn't think about before this discussion tonight.
Absolutely, and that message came through that the need is still out there. There's got to be vigilance in following up on this disaster.
All right, thank you all so much for coming in, and for you at home, thank you so much for joining us for our special Town Hall Hill Country Flooding Disaster. If you missed any part of this discussion at all, it will be on our News 4 YouTube channel along with our website in its entirety. We appreciate you joining us. We hope to see you back here for News 4 San Antonio at 10. In the meantime, we hope you have a great evening.